Good day, everyone. You have now entered into the Speakers Bureau production. It's St. Lucie County Public Schools Speakers Bureau. And we are so glad to have you tune in with us today. We have wonderful speakers all over this community that comes to share their life story. And they do it to motivate and encourage us. You know, there's a lot we can learn in people's stories. And so that's what the Speakers Bureau is all about. It's to encourage and motivate you, inspire you. Our speakers talk about challenges as well as victories in their lives and what they did to actually overcome some of those challenges and how they became who they are today. So today we have with us a very, very special speaker. She is Dr. Wilhelmina Lyons, and she is the CEO and the president of the Florida, I didn't put it with me, but it's the
Florida Community Health Centers.
And centers. You hear an S on the end of that word because it's not only are we privileged here in St. Lucie County to have them, but several counties, right, throughout the state of Florida. And so she's going to explain that a little bit more about what they do. But Dr. Lewis is a medical doctor, and she's got a special calling in her life to do what she does. And I can say that because just looking from the outside in, I believe it's a God calling in her life, and she is very committed to what she does. So Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for coming in. Last minute, I must say, and how you are such a humble servant to this community, and we certainly do appreciate you. So give us a little background about what you do for a living.
Well, first, let me thank you so much for the opportunity and the honor of the invitation. It's really, really a blessing to me to be able to spend some time with you today. So a little bit about what I do. As you mentioned, I'm I'm honored to serve, and I really do take that word seriously, serve as the president and CEO of Florida Community Health Centers. I've been in Fort Pierce since 2002. And I was originally in private practice, but I got a call one day about a year into private practice asking if I would be interested in working in a community health center. I had been volunteering some of my time at a free clinic in addition to working in my private practice. And I knew that it was just the thing that I was supposed to do. Had no idea that the journey would take me to this place within the organization, but I already had a calling on my life to serve those who might not be able to afford high quality health care, and I have a passion about that. So I took a pay cut, I left, started working at the Fort Pierce location, and over the years kind of went through the ranks, I guess you'd say, of leadership, some clinical leadership initially, and then eventually became the chief medical officer. After about 7 years of serving as the chief medical officer, our CEO decided to retire. And so for the last 2 years, I've been honored to serve as the CEO for the organization, which, as you mentioned, actually serves the 6 counties around Lake Okeechobee. We have 12 locations, and we take care of about 51,000 patients in those communities, but we are a private practice with a public health interest. So we really try to not only take care of our patients, but we believe that we're taking care of our communities one patient at a time, and also trying to engage in other broader activities that can impact the community, especially in these days of things like COVID-19 and other healthcare crises.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And you're doing an excellent work, especially in these days of COVID-19. And we want to talk a little bit more about that later. But I wanted to know, where were you born? How did you end up here in our community doing what you do? And a little bit about your educational background.
Okay. I was born in Clewiston, Florida, which is actually only about 2 hours from here, and is the location of the very first center of Florida Community Health Centers. I was actually there on the day that that center opened, of course, having no idea at that point in time that it was fitting a little bit into destiny and purpose. But I was born in the bedroom in which I grew up. The daughter of my mom, who was the daughter of a sharecropper. She grew up picking cotton in Georgia, trying to go to school for half days, was never able to go past middle school. My dad immigrated from Jamaica, had not been able to have education there, but came to the United States looking for a better life. He wound up in Clewiston because he got injured while working for the United States Sugar Corporation, which was the way a lot of Jamaicans came on the contract, to do work that was either cutting cane or things of that nature. And he decided that he didn't want to cut cane, so he became a cowboy. But a horse fell across his leg and actually crushed his ankle. And while he was recuperating, this big family from Georgia moved in across the street from him. And he said that he told his friends that whichever one of them was the prettiest, because they'd heard that this family had a lot of daughters. My mom was one of about 18 kids, actually, about 13 of whom lived. So when they all moved in, my father had told his friends in advance that whichever one was the prettiest daughter that he was going to marry. So he said that my mom was the prettiest daughter. He courted her by sending her some good Jamaican food over by her brother, who he made sure to befriend. And they got married, had us. But during those times, there was not equal access to health care. And though I really can't, in all honesty, say that I believe that there's equal access to health care now, there was likely an even greater disparity during that time. And unfortunately, the child that my mother had before me was stillborn because they were waiting on a doctor to arrive who would deliver her baby. And so while they had her, held her legs together, waiting on this doctor to arrive so that the baby wouldn't come without him being there. That baby was then born stillborn. So my mother, when she went into labor with me, would not say anything. She said she and my dad were in bed together, but by the time she told my dad that she needed to go to the hospital because I was, coming, it was already too late for them to go to the hospital. So my dad delivered me in that bedroom. He called the doctor, who told him how to cut the cord, and they can describe how he tied that string around the cord. He cut the cord himself, and then later he took my mom and myself to the hospital. But the memories and stories of those types of experiences, and understanding that people didn't have health access to quality care, were ingrained in my memory. And from the time I can remember my first memory, I can't quite say whether it was my dad basically prophesying to me that I was going to be a doctor, or me telling him that I wanted to be one, but I knew that I was going to be a doctor. When I was in the 5th grade, the school librarian convinced my dad that I should have some encyclopedias to help with my education, and not having had the opportunity for education himself, he was passionate about making sure that we did. And so I used to look through those encyclopedia pages, and there were these clear pages that had pictures of the human body, and if you layered them, you could see the circulatory system on top of the nerves, on top of the bones. And I would just stare at those, so fascinated about how the human body worked, and I can trace that back to the 5th grade. So all over the course of time, I just knew it. The journey was not easy. There was lots of discouragement along the way, but I just knew it was what I was supposed to do. I wound up leaving Clewiston to attend Princeton University, and had some challenges in the journey there when the pre-med advisor told me that he thought I might want to consider another career, because with my background, he didn't think I was going to be able to compete against the other students who were pre-med. And I really took that to heart, unfortunately, and I gave up my pre-med coursework. I did continue on at Princeton and completed my education in English, but my junior year, I went back, and because I just couldn't get rid of that sense that I was supposed to be a doctor. And I said, I'm going back to this pre-med advisor, and they're just gonna have to tell me again that I can't do it, and that there's not another way, but I'm going back. And I went back, and this time there was a lady there who actually apologized that he had said that to me. And she said, I will help you find a program where you can explore whether or not this is still what you want to do. So the summer after my junior year, I went to the University of Cincinnati to a summer program, had a fantastic experience, still knew that this was what I was destined for. Spent an additional 3 years after I graduated from Princeton in a post-baccalaureate program to do my pre-med requirements. Went back to the University of Cincinnati on scholarship, where I completed medical school. I did my family medicine residency, stayed there for a fellowship in geriatrics, and then just as I got ready to accept the job, knew that I needed to return to Florida because by that point in time, my mom had unfortunately passed away from cancer. My father was older and living alone, and I thought that it would be wise for me to move to Florida by choice rather than in the event of an emergency when he needed me. Didn't want to move back to Clewiston, so got recruited here to Fort Pierce to the private practice I mentioned earlier, and it came from there. The rest is history.
Wow, do you tell a story? That was just, I realized my mouth was open. I was like, wait a minute, close your mouth, girl. But that is some sort of story that you just gave us. And so many lessons that came just as I listened to you that you know, helped in the midst. For example, words are so powerful. And you talked about how your dad did one thing and told you were going to be that doctor. And I remember that with my daughter, who's actually a judge now, but you know, she was a lawyer before the judge, of course, and how I always spoke into her life from the time she was born that she was going to be a lawyer. And you know, as she grew up, she wanted to be a ballerina, she wanted to be an actress, but she couldn't get that lawyer out of, that attorney out of her spirit, and that's what she ended up becoming, and then went on to be a judge. So the words that people speak to their children is tremendous. And if you have somebody that's cussing a child out, or telling them they're never going to be anything, or you're going to be just like you're no good, this and that, the other, those words mean something to children.
They do.
And then you spoke about, you know, the other instance where you were told you wasn't doctor material because of your background. How the good of one can be destroyed by the wrong in another. Speaking negative words over your life. And I thought about that with another one of my children who I always told him he was going to be a doctor. And he gets this one teacher that says to him, you can become something else, but I don't think you're going to be a doctor. And that just took him down another path. So thank you so much for that tremendous story that you just gave to the community to help us understand life. You said your mom was picked cotton and had to leave school at an early age, but it didn't mean that you had to follow that path. And someone spoke into your life, your parents, that let you know that you could really be anything you wanted to be. And then books in your story, how books exposed you to also feeding that doctor into your spirit. And out of all the books you received, you got that one book that you were able to really, you were amazed at as you're looking through, and that planted seeds in your life or watered the seeds that were in your life. So, you know, with all that you said to us just now today, do you have a best childhood memory, something that you just kind of sticks out, and it doesn't have to be so positive, but it's a childhood memory?
Besides that World Book Encyclopedia memory of those pages, the other memory that stays with me is at the age of 6 being baptized in the outside pool of Friendship Missionary Baptist Church by Reverend Leon H. King. I remember that day. I remember it was Judy Henry in line in front of me.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that we got the right hand of fellowship in the inside the building afterwards. I remember, you know, having on that white from head to toe with the swimming cap on. That sticks in my brain. I even remember walking down the aisle before it happened, when you come to the church, and I remember Reverend King talking to me. My brother followed me down the aisle, and he talked to him and sent him back.
Oh, wow.
But that series of events is just ingrained in my memory. It's truly foundational for my life.
How precious is that? Now, you talked about your parents and how they influenced your life. Is there a teacher that you can remember that made the most impact on you, and why?
Yes, Kate Hall. Miss Kate Hall, rather. It's not Kate, it's Kate Hall. She was my senior English teacher at Coolison High School. And at the time I had been recruited by Princeton, I actually had made decision to go to Eckerd College. I had a full scholarship to Eckerd College, and they contacted me from Princeton because of my SAT scores, and I asked my guidance counselor if I wanted to be interviewed. And when that opportunity came, I did it because it was Princeton, and I didn't know anyone in my family who graduated from college, let alone thought about anyone from my area who'd gone to an Ivy League school. And the acceptance letter came, and I didn't tell my parents about it. I checked the mail, got the letter, and didn't say anything because there was something inside of me that just thought, is this something that I'm up to? And I spoke with her about it. And I remember her taking me out of class into the hallway, and she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "You have to try. Wow. I believe you can do this, and you have to try." And I'm so grateful, because despite the struggle, had I not taken that step and gone to Princeton, my life would be so much different, and I would have, I'm sure, so much regret and just wondering whether or not I could have made it. The path was a bit different than I anticipated, but I have a Princeton degree on my wall. God helped me to persevere through all of the good and bad of that experience, and I don't have to wonder about what would have happened. And so I'm forever grateful to Miss Hall.
Words again. How important words are that we speak to young people and to one another. Interesting that she would be, it wasn't until high school that you met that one, I'm sure you have other teachers as well, but it really encourages us as a public school system to hear the stories of how teachers have impacted the lives of others, because they are our frontline warriors. That's what I call them. And they are. They're in the classroom every day with the students, and they often have 20 students or more in that classroom that they're dealing with, and of all type of background and home lives. And their words that they speak into those students' lives can be the difference between success and failure. Even if the home is challenging, they play a huge part, because that student is in that classroom 5 days a week for so many hours. And so now I know you talked about this, you're a little bit about the profession you chose. Why did you choose that profession?
There is nothing else in my mind that I can even conceive of doing. It comes out of who I am. Being a physician allows me to nurture, to have relationship. I really believe, actually, I gain even more from my patients and now my staff than they ever do from me. It gives me the opportunity to be a vehicle of healing, whether that's physical, emotional, sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes people just come because they want me to pray with them. So there's a realm of experiences and things rolled into one profession that being a physician enables me to experience. Also, to be a teacher. I never thought of myself as a teacher, because I thought of it as being a very traditional role in terms of standing up in front of a class and having that type of interaction. But I realized that teaching takes many forms. And so in my interactions with patients and staff, I'm now a teacher, and you do have that ability, responsibility, and opportunity to
So
go
we
and
teach each other,
to teach each other.
and
I
it
learned
doesn't
from
have
them.
to be in that traditional classroom.
Absolutely.
It's life.
Yes.
And whatever we do in life, whether it's good or bad, we're teaching something.
We
It's a
are.
teaching moment for others. Now, if you had a chance for a do-over in life, what would you do differently?
That's a really difficult one. I try to have no regrets because I really do embrace the words of Romans 8:28 that says all things work together for good. And I think if I had gone back and done something differently, I wouldn't be in this seat on this day at this time, because my life's path could have been different. I think when it's most likely any way that if I've harmed somebody or said something that you can't take back, those things can be irreparable, because even an apology in those instances still doesn't erase the hurt. So, but if I could do something over, I would be with my father at the time that he passed. I was away, but I also know that he didn't want us there, because at that point in time he was ready to go, and I know intentionally that he waited until I was not there. So I would go back and be there with him, so he would not be alone.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 2 with whom I grew up, but I have probably a total of 8 altogether, not all of whom are living. 4 of us, 5 of us. Complicated stories.
Okay.
I mean, in all honesty, my father had a child with a woman who lived across the street from my mother, and my mother raised her for like 15 months of her life. So as I start counting, I'm thinking about, okay, people I grew up with, the ones I know are related to me, and the ones I had relationship with.
Thank you so much.
Those are different numbers. But it's just the truth.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of folks wouldn't have went there, but you're kindred spirit, because I'll go there. But what that just tells us is that we all have hardships.
Yes.
We all have struggles.
Yes.
And it's what we do with those hardships and struggles. We could allow them to help us climb up a little bit, or lay on top of us and pull us down.
Absolutely.
But we all have those challenges. And, many times people will look at someone that's successful, such as yourself, and think, oh, she must have just had it made. Or he must have just had, they had everything in place, and, look at what that did for them. But when they find out that we're just as human as they are, and that some things will even make you cry.
Yes.
Of stuff that has happened, but it's what you do with that and how you handle that. And it is a process.
It is.
One of the things you mentioned about, wanting to be a doctor, and then how somebody spoke into your life and you gave up on that. But you had to go through that process. And then you came back around full circle and understood who you were and what you had in you. And you build on that strength to be who you wanted to be in life.
Yeah.
And so young people, as you move on in your life, as our other speaker mentioned a while that we talked with, how when he graduated from college, that day that he walked across the stage, it was like, okay, now I'm really got to go out here into the real world. As you leave your home, and you do go to college, and and you are out there in the real world, or you make a decision not to go to college, but to do something else with your life, to get a skill or to go into the service or whatever. Know this, that you don't have to lay down if you get knocked down.
Absolutely.
You can get back up and you can start all over again. And no matter what your age is, too. I have to bring that in because I'm getting up there in age. So I understand there's people out there that, I know a lady who did not ever get her high school equivalency or graduate from high school. She waited until she was 70 years old and went back and got that degree. So it's never too late for any of us to do something different with our lives. Dr. Lewis,
Yes, ma'am.
what are your top three, I won't say three, I won't make it that intense, but your top one or two books that are favorite books, and tell us why.
Well, of course, that World Book Encyclopedia. Now
Yeah,
everything's
okay,
online, but that
all right now.
World Book Encyclopedia has to forever be on my list.
Okay.
My Bible, because that's just my guide for life. And so that's definitely my second one. There's so much wisdom in there, and some of the best stories and experiences and things to learn from. You know, there's intrigue in there. So I love that, and I
Wow,
love.
wait, before you go any further, I have to make a comment on that because our last speaker used that as his favorite book as well, and he talked about the stories. And so folks out there, read it like a regular book,
Right.
and enjoy those stories because they will intrigue you.
Yes.
I mean, from Genesis to Revelation, it's a book all by itself.
It is.
Yeah.
And I usually, if I give one away, I'll try to give one that's in a very simple language, like a Living Bible or a Life Application Bible, so that people can really read it like a book and just learn from the stories in it.
Well, I tell you, the speakers that I have all have some, seems like the majority of them, I won't say all, never say all, but the majority of them have some sort of religious background that they have pulled strength from. And so that plays a huge part, it looks like, in the success of individuals, especially if you're going to not just be successful in your professional life, and studies show that, scientific studies show that people that, you know, that they're able to make it through some things that others can't make it through because they have that balance in life. Okay, I asked you about your favorite books. The next thing I want to know is, what is your favorite music?
I love lots of different types of music.
Okay.
I love listening to gospel music. I love listening to reggae.
Reggae,
my
okay.
Jamaican heritage, and if I need an energy pick me up, I'm gonna listen to reggae. I love smooth jazz. That helps mellow me out. I listen to classical music when I'm either trying to study or just I need to take my brain space to a different place. So I would say those are my favorites, but I'll listen to country and western. I mean, I'm kind of eclectic in my taste.
I love it. And I love it because if you only have one favorite, you're missing out on so many others. And you said classical, sometimes I'm in the classical mood. Sometimes I'm in going back into the 70s with the R&B, you know.
60s?
Yeah.
60s,
So
70s,
it's good to just be, you know, and sometimes just spa music or soothing or jazz, you know. I mean, it's just such a large variety out there that it's good to be to know more than just one or two things, you know. What are you the most afraid of in life? And I almost feel sorry for my speakers because I ask these questions that's kind of like, oh, wow, okay. But tell us, is there anything that you can say that you would be most afraid of?
I think at the core of my humanity, sometimes I fear that I have not utilized or will not utilize the gift that has been placed in me to its fullest fruition, that because of my own fear or being an introvert or those kinds of things, that I will hinder my own self from fully accomplishing what's been assigned to my life.
Stop right there. That's enough food for thought. And we are actually out of time. I got so involved in what you have been saying that I forgot the clock. So, Dr. Lewis, we want to say thank you. This is the end of our Speakers Bureau program for today. And I had this wonderful question I was going to ask you, but I never did get to it. So you got to come back so we can continue your life story on the Speakers Bureau. Again, we thank you so much for the time and your willingness to be a part of this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.